Welcome to Do It for the Gram, an Enneagram podcast with your host, certified Enneagram coach Milton Stewart, where we do it for the Enneagram, not Instagram. We make moves to improve our lives and those in our community. I am really excited today because we are going to be talking about an absolutely incredible topic with an absolutely incredible person. And I literally just met this person literally a week or two ago, and we had such a great conversation and resonated so well because of type structure and more. So, without further ado, Amy, I want you to introduce yourself to the audience.
Okay, well, my name is Amy McCabe. I think things that I like people to know about me when it comes to Enneagram coaching and training work, which is my favorite thing to do, is that this is hmm, a I don't know if I'm going to call this a third or fourth iteration or career for myself. I started out as a trial lawyer and worked in that arena for 15 years, and then this is a probably a separate podcast, but I fought a call to go to seminary for about 15 years, finally went and became a pastor. And in the process of that, also a spiritual director and retreat leader and Enneagram coach. And now most of my energy is focused on working with coaching and doing retreats and workshops. And I work with all sorts of everything from lawyers to corporations to individuals to churches, other nonprofits. Yeah. So, what else could I say about myself, Milton?
What's
Um,
your Enneagram type?
oh, yeah. I'm a lead with a type 7 self pres. Boom.
Let's go. Yes,
I know. I was thinking like this conversation could get interesting and a little
I agree.
frenetic.
I agree. I hope listeners are ready for the roller coaster and the tangential stops along the way that may happen. Because you
That's
literally
a
have
great word.
two self-prayer sevens in the interview. Okay, here we go. This is it's going to be interesting. But I absolutely love this topic that we're talking about. Enneagram retreats because it hits so deeply, and an experience that I've had has been profound. But I want to ask you, how have you personally benefited from attending Enneagram retreats, and how has it impacted your growth journey?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say, you know, there haven't been that many retreats out there. This is kind of new. When I first started getting into the Enneagram, there were like four books, and
Hmm.
then it wasn't until just a handful of years ago that I went to a week-long retreat. It was also a training, but it was really well done and conducted like a retreat. And it just gave me time beyond the fast pace. Not that sevens move at a fast pace or anything, but gave me the space to let it all kind of shake down and percolate, as opposed to, we enter into these things and you go to a conference or something and you hear a bunch of great stuff and it's like, that was really cool. And then you go back to real life and there's nobody there who knows what you did, and there's no one to talk to. And that was especially true with the Enneagram work up until, just several years ago. But for me, it was about with the Enneagram and retreat work over a period of days was about slowing down and having those deeper moments to hear really from something beyond myself or to my deeper self, or however you want to think about that. But things that really bubbled to the surface and were there for me to play with, work with, cry with, be with other like-minded people who you
Hmm.
could develop some trust over a period of days, as you saw some vulnerability coming to the surface, and all of that just led to getting it on a more embodied level, on like really let it get in and start to integrate before you went home.
Yeah.
you know.
And so, and I love what you're talking about because it's that you actually get time. Like you mentioned, before, it's like you get all this information, but there's no time for it to metabolize, for it to be
Right.
integrated, for you to actually look at it long enough. Retreats give you that ability to have time, and I love that. And I love that you're bringing it out. It's like conference, cool, books, cool. Those are great, but you need time to do exactly what you're talking about. I need time to work with it, cry about it, look at, take time, sit with it, be mad at it, whatever.
Right,
So
right.
I absolutely love that. So, what are, I would say, unique opportunities that Enneagram retreats provide for individuals who are trying to seek that deeper growth or self awareness or healing or understanding of their type? What is something like, what are the unique opportunities that they usually get at Enneagram retreats?
Well, when you come together with people who have signed up for an Enneagram retreat, right? You know it's different than when the boss signed you up and you go and you're going to train people in a corporate setting or do their corporate retreat, and you got, a third of the people who are looking to get out of it for another meeting, and there's a few people who are into it. But when you have a retreat that people have signed up for, and they're like, hey, I'm giving my 3 days or my weekend to this or whatever, um, they're there to go deeper. They suspect there's something deeper. And so it provides an opportunity to come together with like-minded people around a shared interest. And then, I mean, you're doing this with people, unless you're doing something online that, that's an individual retreat. And even then, you can have breakout rooms, right? We know how deep it can go with some of the work online. But I think it also opens us up to another world. We get into our little pods and our little way, and we hang out with people who like us and are like us. And when you get into these other settings, you're challenged a little. And you're going to meet people that maybe they're not like you. And every time that's happened to me, I could say like 90% of the time that's happened to me or more, when I thought, oh my gosh, this person, how am I going to make it through this? And they end up being like your bestie by the end of the
Yeah.
thing because they've taught you something. It's just like, and I should
I
know
got a
that
story. Yeah.
resistance. Okay, okay. So you should know like resistance, pay attention to it because it's telling you something. Yeah, story.
Yeah, no, no. Without giving away too much, it's interesting because there's a person in a retreat who's a type 4. And at the very beginning, and that's some of the resistance, being a 7 to a degree, type 4. And I was like, this person is getting on my nerves. And now, I mean, I freaking love the person now. Like, after I was like, I freaking love this. We're cool. We're
Yep.
like really cool. So, yeah. Mm hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and I could tell stories, but that would be a tangent, Milton.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, and of course,
I
like
won't tell those stories.
they know we're gonna stop on some different side of the road a
Okay,
couple of times. We're
okay,
gonna sightsee
okay,
a little bit. So I
yeah.
have a question for you. Being a self-pres 7, I just want to see like from your perspective, what is, and maybe how has it shifted over time? What is your like perspective, or how do you go into a retreat? Like, what is your thinking when you go into a retreat, especially like when you first started compared to like how you go into one now
As a leader,
as a attendee first?
oh, I think I was a little more. This is a great question. Like a little more, like almost gung ho. Like I wanted to help, or like I was going to make things happen, and I go in like prepared and ready and overzealous or something. And now I really go in at this point with like a more open-handed, open-hearted, like I don't know what kind of crazy stuff is going to happen or what I can expect. And maybe it'll be radical, and maybe it's just for me to slow down and receive one one thing, one little morsel. I think, early on I was like, oh, radical transformation. I'm going to go in and
Right?
this is my expectation. So, yeah. So now I just go in ready to receive. Yeah, that's a good receive and take keeps coming up for me around retreats and you know maybe there was more like I was gonna take and now I'm in a posture where I go in ready to receive.
Hmm. Ooh, that's rich. The difference between receiving and taking is such a big difference. Oh my
Hmm.
goodness.
Yeah,
Ooh, ooh.
yeah. I'll throw in a little practice that I started doing some years ago,
Mhm.
and it's not my practice, and I wish I could tell you where I learned it or heard it, but I made it my practice because as a seven on travel or even on sometimes on a daily basis, I am an overtaker of photographs. I mean, it's a little bit, yeah, just and I don't I could we could talk about where I think, that comes from in my ego structure and all of that, but the gluttony, that's there, the more the going but not really being there for it, right? Because you're already on to the next thing. So if I have all these pictures, then I was really there and I can go back to them. And of course now learning to work with presence practices and centering practices even on the fly to really be there. So what I do is, and gosh, if I didn't tell my daughter this some years ago, and then she started calling me out on it. So I think of photos as like receive first and then take. And we would be on a vacation and she, I don't know, 10, 12, and she'd go, Mom, did you receive before you just took? And it's a great practice for us like shutterbugs, to
Yeah.
stand there and look at the texture of things and smell the smells and you know
Yes.
feel the, feel the atmosphere and really sense into it before you just like immortalize
Mm.
it, in a picture
Yeah.
you took. So
Mm.
receive, then
Ooh.
you can take, but receive first.
Mm. Mm. That's a nugget right there. That's a gold nugget. I love that. Oh my goodness. No, that's rich. I really love that. And it kind of reminds me of when you were talking about entering retreats. I remember this gun ho, like I am going to go in there and I'm going to take something amazing. I'm going to grow. Like it's like I'm going to grow and it's going to be great and exciting and
Yeah.
amazing. And after I go to the first one, I was like, oh, so growth does not look like what I thought it looked like. Like not this like intense looking at what I have to deal with. Oh, it does not look like what I thought it is, and it is not exciting. That is not the word I would use. Um, and so it is. I had to settle, and then I noticed I also had fear that would pop up, and for me, it was like the fear of vulnerability in a lot of ways, right? The fear of being vulnerable, and then I got to a point I grew where I said, I don't care what these other people think. I'm here to grow. Like whatever it was gonna happen, I gotta grow. Like I got to a point internally where it was like, I don't care what they think. I gotta grow. It is what it is, right? Um, and I'm thankful I was able to do my work internally to get to keep improving from those base in those spaces, where it is now. It's like much more like um, a, a, a person I know named Linda. She says trust the unfolding. Well, I know she's getting from like the Diamond School and stuff, but she says trust the unfolding.
Yep.
And I've started to work on doing that, right? To what will happen, because you do not a lot of times know exactly what's going to happen because you're receiving, like you
Yeah.
just said. So
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. That it reminds me of the innocence of the virtue at point eight that is like it was helpful for me, with it, even though six is my stronger wing. this idea of you don't know what's going to happen next,
Yeah.
being a part of innocence. I that was transformational for me just to go,
Yeah.
wow, that takes a life at 50 something and where things can kind of look, I don't know, boring, or I know what's going to happen next, or just
Yeah.
midlife can be kind of blah blah, and all of a sudden it's just a script flip. Like, wait a minute, what if I did approach all of life like I don't know what's going to happen next? It's a fresh, truly fresh perspective that our sevenness likes. So
Yes. I totally agree. I totally agree. And as much as I love leading for like retreats and facilitating them, I love when I get a chance to be a student and a learner at the same time. I've learned to love that, where I'm like, guess I'm gonna learn that. Let me just sit, like, what are we doing? Um,
yeah.
I love that you mentioned that. So in mentioning this, I think this is another question I have for you. What are like, because retreats are not just important because of the individual, retreats are also important because of other people with you. So like what unique opportunities would you say that retreats have for building community or connection with other people who are there?
Well, first of all, can I switch into like facilitator mode?
Do your thing. Do your thing.
I was trying to stay in participant mode, but well, the way I like to lead retreats is that, I really like the round table thing, people at round tables. And so that you're learning some things. There's some intake of something, but then there's time where you have on your own to just reflect because some people need that. I could go right into just discussing something and then figure out how I feel about it by discussing it. And there's people who need like time, so I try to leave that time, but then encourage discussion around tables or group activities, or sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's deep. And then also some time with like a larger group debrief. And so that's one way that I think that community can start to form. Then with the Enneagram in particular, it's fun when you can have people let if they know their type structure early on, you can have some idea of, oh, okay, I could do something with panels, or I've got a really interesting even division between the stances here. So maybe we'll have that kind of discussion. And you can't even separate people once you start into those things. They're like, they
That's
don't
true.
stop talking, like they get in there and they're having those kind of like you and I on the phone the other day talking about our self-presence. It was
Yeah.
just, there's connection there. And
Yeah.
you know and so there's that, and then the other opportunity, or the thing that I hope I can always do, is to start communities out of that, because this is deep
Hmm.
work that
Yeah.
takes time. And so, like, I did some retreats, and this is some years ago, and I still have a group that meets once a month on Thursday night, and I lead like a little mini workshop, and we do a little um, mini workshop. It's an hour and 45 minutes usually. And but what happened was, it was a place where if you went to a retreat and you were stoked, and then you were like, no one in my life knows what
Can-
this is, or
yes.
I can't,
Yes.
and I
I
can't
can't talk to
explain
anybody in my
it.
life about this. Yes.
Yeah, there's a place where you're invited to come back to, and I'd really like to do more of that. So even online, to create more of those, because they've been valuable for me to continue the conversation. Place for questions, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. Tell me if this is true for you. I don't know if it's true for you or not, but whenever I go to a retreat in a different city or somewhere, there's always at least one person that says, if you are in my city, contact me. You can stay at my place. Does that happen to you?
Yeah.
I mean, there's not many places around, like, I would say definitely in the US, but even around the world to a degree, that there's not someone that I could say, "Hey, I'm gonna be in town. Can I stay a night?" That they'd be like, "Okay, sure, come on over." You know,
Yeah,
I find that so amazing because, like, we only know these people for like 4 or 5 days. Like, it shocked me the first time some multiple people was like, "Oh, if you're in the city, come and talk to me." You can. I was like, "What?" You know, and
yeah,
I think because in these retreats, you really get to see, hear, and meet the real person that you're like, I connect with you. I human to human you, and I want
right.
you to be okay. And so if you're ever in my, place and you need to save money, or I would love to just meet with you and connect, come stay at my place. So I find that so profound, like, because it's like
Yeah.
you're in there like 4 or 5 days, and all of a sudden they're like, come over to my house and spend the night.
Yeah. Well, there's just a trust with that, with that vulnerability that I had someone I've only ever met online through our Enneagram work. I I will probably go stay with her. She lives out in California, but it is kind of one of those like, come and stay with my husband and I, and we can do. And I think that other people are like, well, that's weird. You've never even met this person, but because it's the Enneagram, that I
Yeah.
love your human to human. I may have met her on a level that I may not even know some of my friends on that same
Mm-hmm.
level,
Yes. Yes. It's the truth. I mean, it's the truth. I love what you talked about, building community after the retreat, because things that happen in the retreat, there's many times you you can't explain or catch people up to what happened. Like, unless they've had a similar experience before, somehow, somewhere, some way. You can't fully
Right.
explain it, and to be able to build on that and to have a space where someone has seen you vulnerable and they hold it dear and sacred and safe, you know, that's a beautiful thing. So the
Yeah.
community piece of it, the integration piece of it is really needed. So
Yeah.
I love that. Ah,
Yeah. I think that's why I went so long after first, starting to learn about the Enneagram and I don't know, 2005, and started working with it right away uh, in spiritual direction, even though people didn't know we were working with it. That's the beauty of the Enneagram, right? You can,
yes, it is.
uh, but for so many years, it's like no one even knew the word. Still, it's come a long, long, long way. But back then, it was no one was really asking for it. No, there were only so many books, but you felt like you'd stumbled upon spiritual gold. Like you knew that you had something that has had started to do its work on you and you had started to transform. And yeah, I think that's
Yep.
when I
Yep.
saw that it came out, it was like popular culture and people were asking for it and books were being written. I thought, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. I people are asking for it now. They want this. And so I just started to, incorporate it and go deeper and uh, learn more myself. And yeah,
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That transition period from it being like very little few things. Um, because that's when I first got into it as well. I mean, it's very few. Like, when I got
yep,
into it, there was one podcast. There were, I mean, a few books, but a very few. That was it. You know,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
I don't know. I love the growth of it, for sure. Um, and I think this part of it. And you said something that I didn't think about. I really didn't think about it at the very beginning. You said how there wasn't Enneagram retreats at the beginning. There really wasn't. Like training retreats type of thing. That it wasn't even a thing. Like, it wasn't a thing. I never really registered that, and I just thought like, oh my goodness, it wasn't. So I think this is almost like what like we're doing and what you're doing, like leading retreats and facilitating them. is almost like a frontier in the space because the
Yeah.
work of the Enneagram is the work, the actual work you're doing. Like, yes, to understand the types is great, but the work we do is the weighty, the meaty, the crux, the beautiful, the all that part of it.
Right.
And I didn't even think of it like that. Huh.
Yeah. I like that word frontier a lot because I still think it's the case. You can't just, I mean, you can Google Enneagram retreats, but it's not like you're going to find one near you. They're
I know.
not, it's, it takes a minute for these things to pop up. And also I think it depends on how people run them. Like I run 2-day workshops more like retreats than just um, workshops. I guess I don't know what
Yeah.
the difference to me is how deep you go maybe or what kind of um,
Yeah.
environment you're creating.
Yeah, can you share a little bit of like your offerings of like how you do retreats or workshops, so people get a sense of like how you do them,
Sure.
and what you're also
Yeah.
offering? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could tell you that I had something like I just resigned from my job of 6 years so that I could focus full time on this. So soon I will have more offerings. I'll tell you about one that's upcoming in October and putting something together probably online for this summer. Um, that will be more, probably for a series of four. But when I have done them, typically it's over the course of 2 days. And you come in, I do like Friday, we're doing introductory things. You've already heard from me. I've asked you to know your type. I have a sense of who's going to be there. I've usually offered myself up for typing interviews just to help people because the further they are along, as you know, when they get there, the better, the more they'll be able
Hmm.
to really absorb and enter into it. So, um, and then, gosh, I've done so many different things. I've done couples retreats. I've
Mm.
done Enneagram of Harmony early on. I worked with Harmony triads. Um, Now I would say I tend to do like heavy in the centers of intelligence is really the landing. It's really where it's at for me. And I can't imagine I'll deviate from that structure. So do some introductory things, some overview so people are starting to get it. And then we get right into the body. And so we get
That's right.
into I don't know a better way to really work with the centers than try to get them to experience the centers. And so
Right.
I'll teach all the types, and sometimes we'll do an activity after each type, or use music, or different ways in. But then when it comes to the body center of intelligence, we'll do maybe some embodied practices, maybe some simple movement, right? Maybe some sensory things. There'll be um, grounding practices, right? Like
Yeah.
just getting people to sense that, and I wish I could tell you who said this, that their body is not a taxi for the brain,
Mm.
that body has information and intelligence and um, a world all of its own, that is giving it. We call it a feeling, which is a heart word, but it's a feeling because it started as a feeling in a felt sense in the body, in the gut, in the tense
Yeah.
back, in the neck. It started. And so I think that's, even though I'm not from the body triad, is not where I live. I live in the head triad, but the body is just, I don't, that is the place to start for presence.
Hmm.
And that gets people really, and for a lot of people, it's a gentle and easy entry point.
Right.
And then we move on to start to work with the heart, which can, um, I don't know. I don't think you have to be a 3 or 7 or an 8 and have like a repressed heart center
So
in
yeah.
order to know what it is to struggle with
Oh.
like the heart, right? Our culture is just like, does not find the heart to be of value. We do stuff and we think stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, and the heart. And if we are in the heart, it's usually something overreactive that we call the heart.
Right.
Um, so then
Mm,
go into the heart and then finish in the head. And then, I try to do something at the end that brings it all back together and something that they can take
right.
home with them, like an activity or a little project together. So
Yeah.
that's what
And
that's what it, in a nutshell.
and and I want to go back to something. You said so many great things in what you just said, by the way, and I love. Why is it so important to like have that embodied experiential experience when you're at retreats talking about the Enneagram? Why is that so important?
Well, I think we are, this is a psychological term, but we are a culture, a disassociated culture. Uh, I, I mean, that's the only culture I can really speak into, but our modern Western world is distracted and in our heads and checked out, numbed out. I
Right.
mean, somewhere else. And so, when we get back into the body, into the breath, just feeling your feet, right? Like I've done that a couple times while we've been sitting here to make sure that I'm here and
Right.
haven't whoop, done a seven thing and popped out to the next, to the next thing. Um, but it's the key. I think it's the key to memory. I think it's the
Mm,
key to yeah, I don't know why memory is probably a big thing, for head types, because we're often somewhere else in the head.
yeah.
Um, you know, um, so yeah, I think it's the thing that makes you be here now, be here now,
Hmm.
right? Who wrote that? Thich Nhat Hanh or Richard Rohr? But there's a Be Here Now book, right? That we be here now by being in the physical body, in the felt sense of ourselves.
And and I love how like it's so important because to remember is a part of it's a lot of things to remember. I love what you're saying. Like I don't want to go on and on, but to remember, the essence of who I really am. To remember the things that are painful that I need to look at and take time to heal, to remember the like the I would say the joy or certain things that we may have missed, because us as sevens, people think sevens are so joyful. Yeah, like when we do our work, yes, like
Yeah,
that little stuff
yeah,
they see in public and they see is like a straight line. That's not always joy, actually. But anyway, you know, but to remember those things, even when you talked about our virtues earlier, to remember those parts of ourselves that are innocent, that are, like, oh gosh, like there's just a beauty in
yeah,
that. I think is so powerful
yeah,
in
yeah. And
retreats.
trust
So I
that the
think,
body can support you in
yes,
that, and to find the love of your own body and your own self and the trust in your own self to do the work, I think
yep.
really starts in the body.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I love because you talked about you start with the body, and I think this is the way you're supposed to do it, or, but you start the body, then you move to emotions, then you get psychological. I think the Enneagram teaches that along the way as well, as we both know. And it's like trying to, I would say, approach, or sometimes we try to attack a issue we're dealing with or struggle we're dealing with without making sure we're grounded. Good luck without getting overwhelmed and not really able to go. Like we need the body so bad to help us ground and be prepared to handle the
Right,
amount of
right,
stuff.
right. It's
So
been the word stabilizing comes up,
yeah.
right?
Ooh,
The,
yeah.
the spiritually speaking, um, I've always wondered why it was a principle to be in the moment to be
Mm,
in this day, to be here, that tomorrow has enough trouble of its own. So, like, be in this day and to, not be anxious. And what I came up with, I'm like, why is that a thing? Why can't I not be anxious, thinking about tomorrow? And it's there, and no matter what your, faith tradition or where you come from in this, there's a sense of um, something higher, something deeper, um, God, the divine, grace, if you will. But like that grace, that divine is future and past, right? Those
mm,
are so, if you will, God is in the future, God is in the past. But for some reason, I got this finite body that's like right here, and it's only in like this moment talking to Milton right now. Like and so it makes sense that like when you're separated from your highest uh, and the best of you, that you're going to be in in the future, you're going to be anxious because the divine is only in this moment,
mm,
with you, because you're only here. Even if you say like grace and the divine is past and future, I'm not. I'm just sitting right here in this body. And so that's why presence in this body in this moment is has been for me the key to the anxiety that, the head center, and everyone, but especially the head center, struggles with. So, and it's not that we can't make positive plans for the future. Please, I'm a seven. I have to be positive. There's,
I
we can
know.
make those, we can make those plans, and it's not that we don't look at the past. We can do that, but if you just live in those places, of course you're going to have regret and shame and sadness. Of course you're going to have fear. I haven't been there yet, and I'm not in the past. I'm just here. So, I now use I now use when I find myself popping out into the future, and I
Hmm.
suppose you could do this if you were focused on the past. I use that as a little like warning sign or like a little red flag or something where I go, okay, is this what I'm supposed to be thinking about right now? If it is, if like I'm
Hmm.
planning a trip or something, yes, I'm thinking about the future. If I'm planning my day tomorrow, I'm thinking about the future. But if I catch myself going, we could do this and we could do
Hmm.
this, and I haven't finished the trip I'm on, I haven't finished the project I'm doing, it's like
Yes.
you've done. Yeah, I see you have some familiarity with that way of being.
The escape is so real to that planning. Like it is like, oh yeah, and then we could do that, and then oh that would go with that, and then I could do that, and it's like, hmm,
Yeah,
come back.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
there's
you right, something
something
finished
in
right
this
now.
moment. Yep, let's
um
hmm.
I was gonna, you asked what all I had going on. There is a planning to lead a retreat in Italy in
Mm,
October, from October 21st to 28th, an Enneagram retreat. It's going to be a very different kind of experience. This is not your 7 day silent retreat,
right.
But the reason that I thought of that and wanted to throw that out there is that I found myself while working on this and working with the woman who, Delicia Ivans, she's just a marketing genius and amazing, has a passion for travel, and she has the Enneagram Travel Club that she runs. So I'm partnering with her to do this, because her passions are like Enneagram and travel. And so she's brought these together to help coaches and retreat leaders. I know, right? I know we need this so much.
Yes.
But the reason I came back to this is because this is a massive undertaking. Okay.
Yeah.
This retreat is going to be huge. And I have found myself in the midst of working on this and planning this, literally thinking about what's next. We haven't done like, ooh, maybe we could do something next in Greenville, South Carolina, or
Oh
something
gosh,
like.
I do, oh, it's so real. Like I completely resonate with that. I already thinking about two or three other trips, and I was like, I haven't even.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's all. Just like come back into the body, come back, brain, come back, like stay here. Well, it's an exciting object, right? To think about what is
Mm-hmm.
the next great thing out there to do. So, but it's enhanced my entire life to work on being present as the simplest, hardest thing I think anyone
Mm-hmm.
probably ever learns.
Yep, I totally agree. So this trip to Italy, you said it's different than like a silent day retreat. What makes it a little bit different?
Well, as we're putting this together, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
writing the Enneagram component will be a lot like the retreat that in terms of breaking it up and working with the centers of intelligence, and doing practices. But the morning will be spent, we'll have a private room in this little boutique hotel where we'll be, and the morning will be spent, and it'll be a small group um, of people. So 12 is the cap. Um, and so we'll start the morning together with a beautiful breakfast, and then we'll get into some work, some teaching work, and some practices. And then the afternoons are spent really exploring the culture of Florence, Italy, and all it's just a place of wonder and awe and history, and just it's one of the most amazing places I've ever been. And it's the heart of the Renaissance, right? And so what a perfect
Right.
place to reinvent yourself or find yourself, and so much beauty and creativity and sculpture and architecture, and it could get super touristy, or you could receive first. And what I'm wanting to cultivate is to give assignments, if you will, always invitational, right? If you want to blow me off and go do your own thing, you don't have to enter in. It's fine. That's part of your choice. But I will have something planned so that with each excursion out, after our time together in the morning, there's a way to integrate that, and a way to take that into whatever they're doing to help them to be present, to help them be in the texture of the moment
Right.
and let that moment speak to them, possibly even start to percolate something for change. And even if it's just a couple of great reflection questions to walk with, as they go through their day. Always, my idea is to relate it to each center. So as they
Right.
go out for the day, we'll work with that center for the day. Yeah. So they're still doing the things and seeing everything and having an amazing, experience, but hopefully it's deepening a little. It's resonating more. It's
Yeah.
striking them differently. And then we'll come back around the table. Um, I don't know if it's every night, but a number of nights, and then there'll be group, discussion over dinner.
Mm-hmm. I love that. There's so many things I connect with on as well. The trip that I'm co-planning as well. So I just love everything you were saying. I love it. I'm not even gonna connect
Yeah,
all
I
the
want to
dots. We could
go
talk
on your
offline about
trip.
some of
I
those.
want to go.
Right. I want to go on your trip. Shoot, I want to go on your trip. Sure. I never been to Italy. But we're going to Greece. But no, no, like yeah, we're gonna have to do that. By the way, we're gonna have to do that in the future. We got to make
Okay.
that happen.
Okay.
Total seven language right there. In the future, we're gonna make it happen.
Yeah.
All right, but we will. But we will. Um,
Which means in
especially stuff
seven
for
speak, it's
sevens.
already happening. It's already
That's
happening if
true.
we're saying
That's
like
true.
oh,
That is true. Both of us pulled up our calendars and like, wait, let me see if I could move. No. So I have another question that I think is important for people coming. Um, how important or how do Enneagram retreats foster a safe, community and environment for people to share or to become a little bit more vulnerable?
Yeah, well, as you know, a lot of that is on the leader. A lot of that is the tone that we set. Yeah, through our own, hopefully the work we've done on ourselves.
Yeah.
I love leading this work. I think it's what keeps me driving in my own inner work, and making progress because uh, I just can't do anything if I'm not walking the walk or at least trying to, it doesn't come out right, on the other side. It's not authentic. Um, and so, okay, doing your own work as a retreat leader, you can tell.
Yeah.
You can tell the people who you may have all the knowledge and expertise in the world, but um, your embodiment is how you are, right? So
Hmm.
how is that leader showing up? And so by showing up with presence, um, with grace, with compassion, because you've been doing your work, working on compassion for your own self, it's easier to flow out to other people, and then I think being invitational, watching our language around the assumptions of like, and then we're going to do this, and this is next, like whether you want to or not, that's not how it works.
Right.
Being gentle and invitational, um, so that people really do feel like it's their choice to engage in a
Mhm.
particular level of dialogue and to take them slowly maybe into that where you're not going into, you know, you only tackle what you feel comfortable doing because you like everything to be confidential and whatnot, but you're with people you don't know, and it takes time to build
Yeah.
that trust. So being invitational, gentle, modeling a sense of humor and vulnerability, I
Hmm.
think puts people at ease if you can tell your own stories and maybe let them in a little bit, especially in a smaller group setting like this, um,
Yeah.
to your own maybe family of origin story. Um, yeah, I can't tell you
Mm.
how many times I've shown up, I've told a story, maybe it was even just one on one, right, in a side chat or with a, part of the group, and someone leans in and says, "You really?" And it just opens up a whole world of like, if I can be a leader and have this knowledge and be doing my thing and but yet have these broken places that I'm willing
Yeah.
to share, these ugly places, these sad places, these human places. I think that all of those things together probably begin to create a safe container. What do you think?
I I I love your answer, and I love where you started with the answer, and I agree completely. And I think that I'm coming to grow to learn that I think that may like facilitating well and creating space, a container that is safe, may be one of my best gifts. Like I'm coming to learn that like as much information and knowledge and if we want to call it wisdom I have about the Enneagram or whatever, the way that and I take it so seriously. Like it's like I go to as much as I can care about my own comfort and safety and stuff. When I lead and facilitate a group, there is something to me that is sacred about honoring the people within that group. And I bring a different type of energy. I would say a different type of authenticity, vulnerability, honesty, strength, all of it. I bring a whole different because it's like this is we're holding space here,
Hmm.
and it's
Right,
totally different. And
right.
it's like it took me a while to recognize that. Um, yeah, you and I could talk about this even from a seven lens because as
Yeah.
much as we can be floaty, high, excited, joyful. Like the groundedness to hold a space well as a leader
Yeah.
is, I mean, is amazing. It's profound. Like,
Yeah.
I know we're on
There's a
video talking, so I know people.
sacredness. Yeah.
Yes,
There's
yes,
it's
th-
providing space for people to take truly sacred steps on their
yes.
journey. And if we come at it like that, or it's just, it, um, I don't want to say it's going to be a win every time, but it hasn't failed me yet to have
Me
that
neither.
posture of really, sensing into that holy ground, if you will. It's like you take your metaphorical shoes off,
Hmm.
because it's a holy ground when people start to
Yeah,
come with their hurts and their hopes.
yeah, and it's I slightly forgot my thought, but because I got so excited, there was so many things you were saying. I was like, oh, I was
Yeah,
like that. Like,
yeah. That's an
there's
occupational hazard for sevens, I
oh,
think.
oh my goodness, we get so excited because I'm like, oh my goodness, yes, yes, yes. Like there's so many things like you say, I'm like, yep, yep, I agree, yep. There's that the sacredness you spoke of, and I want to do this. I want to say this part. I do definitely want to honor and thank all the teachers that provided space for me as a learner in retreats that helped me to transform. Enneagram retreats have been the most transformational parts of my growth because I had enough intense focus and time to spend
Right.
on them, and I could be vulnerable. And the people who helped hold that room, all the different rooms I've been in with retreats, I'm so grateful for. Um, because at the beginning, I would, like before the point I'm at in my inner work, I would struggle to go to places because I had a podcast and some people knew my name and I was like, oh gosh, they know who I am. Crap. Like, like I want to go in there like no one knows me, but that's not gonna happen. And I got past that part, but I am so grateful for the many people who have held the space for my vulnerabilities and held the
Mhm.
confidentiality of me and me vice versa to them. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that because it's important.
Yeah. No, it really is. We had no idea back then when we were just participants, right? Retreat goers, what was going on behind the scenes, and
Right.
the level of exhaustion that these folks were going to be experiencing after the retreat. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so true. Oh, it's so true. All in growth and healing, and that's what I love
Yes.
about it. So I would say this is another question as we come into a close. I'm going to ask you one question, and then I also want you to share how people can find out more about you and your retreat that you have going on later this year. The first question is, what long-term benefits can participants expect to receive from attending an Enneagram retreat?
Wow. It's interesting because I've thought about things like this in my own life because it's not on one level it's not entirely quantifiable.
Hmm.
Things happen like in the moment. There are like deep body, soul, spirit shifts that happen in the moment, and something changed, and you may never name it.
Right.
You're just different. Um, However, like long term, I think one of the biggest benefits is how it plays out in our closest relationships,
Hmm.
who we return as, whether we've marked, okay, this happened and I learned this, and this change definitively happened, or I'm not gonna, do this, and whatever it is, or I'm putting this practice into place. Even if you can't actually name all of those things, you you come back and you're not the same person you left as there, and it tends to show up in improved relationships, because the
Hmm.
relationship with yourself has improved. You come
Yes.
to into a love of yourself a little more, understanding, grace, and compassion, and so it has an outward flow. People can sense that, and um, super quick story. My sister and I were, um, I don't know, not enemies, but we definitely were not. She leads with type 6. And so, like,
Maybe
our
okay, got
upbringing,
it.
yeah, okay, yeah. So, our upbringing was me, like, there's this cool thing, and we're gonna do it, and it's gonna be fun. And my sister being like, whoa, 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 I need a minute. And then I would be hurt because you don't do all the fun plans that I have. And so, anyway, over time with that and other things in family life, and we grew apart. We were not close. And then here comes this thing called the Enneagram. Uh, and, I introduced her to this thing I was studying and learning about, and she started to learn about it. Anyway, fast forward a couple of decades, um, and she's come to help me facilitate retreats. She's a therapist, and I mean, she is just my closest, confidant, one of
Wow.
my sweetest friends. We talk sometimes ridiculously multiple times a day, but we credit like the Enneagram for that. I
Hmm.
mean, the Enneagram is just a tool, but man, do you find some grace. You stumble you
Yeah.
stumble into some amazing grace through the process of working with it. And that happened for us. So long-term benefits, yeah. I mean, as a parent, I would say I'm different as a wife. Yeah.
I always say, the more I work on myself, every relationship in my life gets better. Like, regardless if the other person changes or whatever, every single relationship in my life has gotten better because I worked on myself
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Every time.
It's the only
So
place when people come to you for coaching, they want to know how to fix is so
true.
and so. It's just like a strategy. Like if we could have the strategy of so and so not acting like a jerk, that's not ever really going to be a thing, So
Hmm.
it always comes back to that inner work. Yeah, I love that. I love that we can take responsibility for that. Especially in this nutso world that we live in, that
Yes. God.
that there's still
Oh,
ownership to take of our own,
yeah.
thought life, our own hearts, our own embodiment.
Yes. All right. So this has been so rich, and we might have to have you on again because this is definitely. I just love having a conversation with you. This is good stuff, and we could go into so many different areas.
Oh yeah.
Um, and it was so many things I resonate with you, like because it's like your your mind works like my mind. So I'm just following you like, I get that. Yep. Nope. Yep. I've done that. Yep. I get, that makes sense. I was like, yes, that is good. So all of that. I really appreciated this interview first and foremost. And your energy and you and what you bring and the different ways that I mean, you went from the legal arena to the spiritual arena, and now you're able to fuse both of those like together in the
Yeah.
work you do, which I think is
Yeah.
incredible, but also a testament to your inner work and the deeper purpose you have for being in this world, right? It's a gift of the inner work.
Yeah.
So can you just share a little bit more about where people can find you, about your retreat coming up, and anything else you would like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Sure. Can I mention too that we're going to do a live Q&A at noon Eastern on May 29th for people who are thinking that they were like, are interested in the Italy retreat, but, want more information, because our early bird special is ending, I think, the end of May. So it's just a couple days after that. And you can find me at mccabecoaching.com. Also, you can email me at mccabecoaching@icloud.com. And then in terms of the retreat page, the enneagramtravelclub.com. And also there's a great stuff that she's putting on Instagram on the enneagramtravelclub.com as well. Did I say the Instagram? Did I say on
I
the
think you
Instagram?
did.
On Instagram, she's putting Enneagram Travel Club posts up there all the time with Italy information.
It's all good. The Enneagram, the Facebook, Kroger's, it's all good, all good. Well, I just want to thank you so much for being here, and sharing the frontier of the Enneagram. To be honest, so thank you so much. This is so good.
I love that. We're gonna have to do something with that Enneagram frontier language. Maybe there's a thinking in the future. There's a future like retreat for
Yeah,
future retreat leaders that we could teach the frontier to.
I totally agree. Okay, all right,
Okay.
yes, okay.
I'm serious.
We
I've
have
had
some.
people say, write a
No,
book
no.
about so we can do these retreats that you're doing because we love the Enneagram and want to offer it, but we don't have, this.
Oh, I've I've thought about an Enneagram facilitators like certification program for like I've thought about this. So okay, yeah, we can talk for real. Like I have some framework already kind of in place. I
Okay.
kind of co-did this but anyway, all right. So thank you all for listening. All the information for Amy will be in the show notes, so you can go there, check it out. Remember, Enneagram retreats are so important to your inner work and your growth. If you are one of those people who are very serious about your growth and your work, I highly recommend Enneagram retreat for you, and look up who is leading it, because as mentioned here, the leader means a lot to what's going to happen, the space, and how it's going to be held. So I thank you so much for listening, and remember, do it for the gram, the Enneagram, of course, your inner work, and not Instagram. And make sure you're doing things for yourself and your community, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Thank you, Milton.